Welcome to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show, where we talk about business, leadership, and career development. Welcome, everyone. You know this must be the third Thursday if Lea Brovedani is here on Big Blend Radio's Success Express show. You know, Lea is she is one of the top leading experts in regards to trust and emotional intelligence. She's an author. She's also a coach, a workshop facilitator, a speaker. She likes to go on cruises and speak. That's awesome. And she's also now back home 100% in Nova Scotia, Canada, and excited to have her back on the show today to talk about trust. And she's going to talk about busting common trust myths, what you've been told might be wrong. This is one of her programs that she runs when she does workshops and speaking engagements. So welcome back, Lea. How are you?
Great. It's lovely to be back. I'm looking out over the ocean and it is a beautiful day, although it's kind of foggy and gray, but I like those days too. It's
nice.
It's lovely to be back.
That's awesome. And so now you're home. And I was going to say, I know that, you do so much in regards to emotional intelligence. I'm just going to wrap it all in that, which is connected to trust, obviously. And, we've done the podcast series as your soul journey doula. And everyone, so Lea is also a death midwife or death doula, however you want to call it. But that is also about emotional intelligence. It's care and compassion and trust, right? So it's all together. But I know that now, with you being in Nova Scotia and the wonderful advent of the internet, you're also working with individuals and companies on emotional intelligence and trust in the workplace, but also as a personal coach. And so you're able to do that around the world, right? Anyone can say, hey, I want to talk to Lea. And it doesn't matter that you're in Nova Scotia. You're looking over the ocean and saying, listen, it'll all be calm. Just look at the ocean. Beautiful.
And it's kind of fun because my clients are all over the place. And in fact, they're not here in Nova Scotia. They're across Canada and down into the States and around the world.
Yeah. And you've lived around the world, like India and all kinds of places. So I think that adds to emotional intelligence. In fact, I just think that would be a really good topic one day about travel and trust and emotional intelligence and what travel can teach us. Yeah. I think that would be a good show topic, Lea. I'm just saying for next time. I think that would be
a great one. Absolutely.
Yeah, because remember we talked about scuba diving and trust.
We did the cenotes. So we did cave dives, which is a huge leap of trust because you can't surface. Once you're into the caves, you're underwater. And if you have to come up really quickly, well, you just can't. You have to trust that your equipment is in top form and that your dive master who's taking you through the caves knows the passage through, although you kind of do follow a rope, and that you have enough air to get to the end and back. So there's a lot of trust involved, especially in diving the cenotes.
I love that. I think trust is something you build, wouldn't you say? I mean, I want to go through the 5 tenets, but trust, I know we're going to talk about common, trust myths like, hey, you can't rebuild trust. But is trust something that you work on? Like we've talked about on the show before that success is like, okay, I've reached that goal. I was successful. But success doesn't mean excellence. Excellence is like it's a journey. You're always in pursuit of getting there, but excellence is how you carry yourself throughout everything. And it's not like, oh, I've now reached excellence and that's that. I made that goal. I think trust is like that.
Well, trust is an outcome of your behaviors, a number of principal behaviors. So it's not like you can say, well, I'm going to have this input of trust. No, it is based on how you behave and act, and that's how you're going to be judged. You can say, oh, I believe in trust. Well, show it if that's true. So there's that myth that trust can be lost in an instant, and that's not true because if you have reputation can be lost in an instant. But if you have seriously lived a life that is based on principles of trust, then if you screw up, because let's face it, we all do, then you don't lose trust. You're able to bring it back because you've got this bank account. So instead of thinking of it as like you have it or you don't have it, and we'll go into that a little bit more, you think of it, and I love the Stephen Covey explanation that it's like a bank account. You put a lot into this bank account of trust. And if you occasionally have to make a withdrawal, if you've placed enough in there, then you can take a small withdrawal and you're not bankrupt.
I like that. I mean, because you know, failure leads to success too, right? You make mistakes, and that's part of how you grow and realize you could be doing something that you don't realize it's hurting someone.
Yeah.
We all do that. We all have a behavior, or we've done something and not realizing that you are creating distrust. You are creating something where and I think that's the other thing. And when it comes to organizations where micromanaging, you've taken away someone's ability to get in the front seat and drive and do something magical and maybe creative and make mistakes along the way. You should be in a company. You should be able to go for it, go for an idea, unless it totally sucks and nobody, you know, you have to have a discussion, obviously. But when someone micromanages someone, you've already created a sense of distrust. That's to me, that's how I feel about it. And sometimes you need to give trust to let people flourish.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I relate now. You and I are both dog animal people. So I know that you'll appreciate this, and hopefully people who are listening to it as well. We have had to release a lot of our control around Bella Scotia, our dog, in order to see like whether or not we can trust letting her off the lead in our yard. We always had this idea that we'd be able to, because we've got a big property, that we'd be able to just let her run. Well, when we first moved here, we couldn't. She was a puppy and she would have taken off into the woods, and I don't know if we would have seen her again. Well, now I can open the door and take her out, and she's really good at coming back. Although the other day she did take off and chased a deer, but she came back.
Yeah. So it's bit by bit, right?
You have to give, like, let go of control to see whether or not you can trust. If you're always monitoring, it means that you don't trust.
Yeah. And sometimes people abuse that too. So when we talk about, you know, you give someone an inch and they take a mile, you know, so there's that too, where you could go in and say, oh, I'm going to let so-and-so take ownership of this part of this project in the company, and they go too far with it and overstep on other people's toes. And then that's where you start to learn where boundaries are. So boundaries and trust. So it's kind of interesting. I know we're talking about myths, but aren't boundaries part of that too? Like you want boundaries, but you don't, you know, you want things to be free and open and everybody trusts each other. Fa la 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 la. That I kind of feel like that also doesn't work.
Well, and you have to understand where trust exists. You know, there's people, a lot of it, and I talk about trust around the competency. So caring, commitment, consistency, competence, and communication. Well, around competence, you have to understand that that's one measure of trust. And so you can trust people in a lot of different areas. But if you're trusting someone to be able to do all of the books, but they don't have any accounting background, then that's kind of on you. You have to be able to understand where their competence lies and trust people to be able to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to hire a doctor who's never worked on the heart to heart operation. They might have skills in some areas. So you have to understand where their competence lies. So that's one of the tenets of trust.
The competence part. And that's the other thing, because people are like, oh, you can trust so-and-so. Well, for what? Like, there's this blanket trust, like is he or she or they, them, you know, the picture perfect? I mean, what is that when you just go, oh, I trust this person?
Yeah.
Okay, I know some people I can trust to not tell a secret, to keep my personal business quiet. But I can't trust them to show up on time.
Exactly.
And I know that. But then I can trust that they will be 5 minutes late, because they're always 5 minutes late. And then that's just who they are. But I know that I can trust them with my personal business.
And I trust my husband with my heart. You know, like, we've been married for 40 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
I trust all aspects of that, but I don't trust him to finish a project that he starts.
But that's the person, you know what I mean? So I think sometimes we just give trust in that you put extra expectations on someone, and that's not fair.
Yeah. So trust is built over time and in steps. So you learned about the person that you can trust them with secrets, but you can't trust them to be on time. That's what you develop over time in those incremental steps. So you
Yeah.
kind of build it. So when we talk about that trust can be lost in an instant, again, we're not talking about trust. A lot of times we're talking about reputation.
Yeah. Reputation and expectations.
Yeah.
The expectations, I think sometimes it's mean. You're putting expectations on someone that didn't ask for it, and then you get mad if they didn't do what you thought they should do.
Yeah.
And that's in personal and in business, right? We put these expectations on. And I see that a lot now in companies. I personally feel that the giant corporations out there are losing trust from their customers, don't trust them anymore because the customer service doesn't show any compassion or care or even consistency. Like it breaks all the 5 tenets of trust, as far as I'm concerned, in a lot of these companies on how they handle things. And if they want to make a switch, they just expect everybody to do what they say, even if it's a price hike, without giving people fair notice or things like that. So I think companies, especially with all these mergers and, like this bank buys out that bank or whatever, there's so many different like website companies, one person owns this and then it's gone. And then all these people walk in and they get a new CEO who just like cuts everything. And everyone's like, what the hell just happened? And it happens on the customer level.
Yeah.
The employees aren't happy. So I think there's that side of it where, do you see that in the world of trust and teaching trust? That just, the trickle down of that is pretty bad. It can be a bad ripple effect.
Well, you think of a really well-respected CEO and none come to mind.
Sorry. Wait, Richard Branson.
So if he makes a major mistake and he takes responsibility and apologizes and then takes corrective action, it actually builds the amount of trust people have in him, because people don't expect others to be perfect. They expect them to take responsibility when mistakes are made. So it's, if you make a mistake, there's that myth that, about trust can be lost in an instant. But if you focus on rebuilding trust through the 5 tenets of trust, which is caring, commitment, consistency, competence, and communication. And if you look at those tenets, and if you believe someone truly cares about you and they screw up, you're more likely to let them rebuild the trust. Now, if they keep making the same mistake over and over again, that's kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly. Now, rebuilding, a lot of times people will think, no, they maybe someone lied to you. A lot of CEOs lie. I'm just saying. But if there is a lie involved or a deception, and I think that is always when you talk about trust, the first thing is like, are you going to deceive me, lie to me? That's probably the most common thought, right, of what trust is, that you can trust someone to not deceive you, not lie to you, not, if it's a romantic relationship, not screw around on you. You know what I mean? Please don't mess with my best friend or my brother or my sister kind of thing. Yeah. And this stuff happens all the time. And I don't know what it says about humans, but humans are definitely not perfect. And sometimes biology and whatever's going on in your body emotionally does things that you shouldn't. And then it's like, oh, well, you cannot be trusted. Sometimes people can have relationships where both parties or one of them, it's open season. Let's go for it. And they're able to do that. And, God bless them, and then at the same time, if someone deceives you, that I think is one of the most common things is, oh, I can't trust you. You went out and did this, or you lied, or you spilled the beans on a secret or something personal to other people. I can't trust you, and you'll never rebuild trust because it was that bad what you did.
Yeah. And
is that kind of a very common thing?
Well, and trust can be really complex because you have situations where there might be a buyout of a company. And you've been told as a manager of the division that the company you're going to be merging with another department, and it's going to change a lot of positions. There might be some people who are laid off. And then you have an employee and you've been told that you absolutely cannot discuss this for all kinds of reasons, SEC, Securities Exchange, because it's not a done deal. Like there's all kinds of reasons why you have been told not to mention it. And then one of your employees comes up and says, is my job safe? How are you supposed to answer without lying? And to keep your reputation, you are a high trust leader. So it's not always black and white. So in situations like that, there's ways of answering. And, like anything from, whoa, that's way above my pay grade to be able to answer that. And, that might be something that you say because you're walking on a fine line, or it could be, well, what are your feelings around that? Turn it back to the person. What are your concerns? Well, if you've got concerns, pay attention to them. And, like there's a high trust leader that I interviewed. His name was Harry Harrington. And I think Harry's now retired, but he was in charge of a company that did all of the online payments for the US government. So it was a billion dollar company. And he used to say, tell them what you can tell them. And so it was a way of, and then also tell them what you can't tell them. So there was a situation where he had a meeting and someone asked him a question. And he looked at them and he said, I told you I would be truthful and answer any questions that you asked. But if I answer this question that you all have inside information, I will have to get everyone's name and you won't be allowed to vote on any stocks because now you'll have insider trading information. Do you want me to answer the question? Because I said I will. And the person said, no, I'd like to withdraw my question. So that's an example of tell them what you can't tell them.
That's good. And you're also keeping the dialogue open.
Yeah.
And you're giving them space and communicating.
And
that's respectful. It's not just, hey, you're just going to have to wait and find out,
Yeah. So that's what I say. Well, tell them what you can't tell them. So if someone comes up and asks you a question, just say, hey, that's way above my pay grade for being able to give any information. Or, there's ways of doing it. And I know it's tricky. And I know it's sometimes difficult. But the last thing you want to do is lie to them, because when it comes back, they're not going to resent the company. They're going to resent you. Trust is a very personal thing.
Yeah, even as in a company. And also some people just ignore it because they don't want to face it. Yeah. You know what I mean? They'll just ignore that kind of situation and like, oh, we'll deal with it when it happens. That's what about trust and gut instinct?
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge thing. And I don't think it's a myth. I think when you have a feeling about something, you have to listen to it, and
absolutely.
Yeah. And every time, we all go through that.
If you have this feeling where every time you see a person, you feel like you have to be on guard or close off, then that's an indication that maybe there's a trust issue. You might not completely trust the person.
And it could just, sometimes you have that. You meet someone and you have an instant dislike, which goes into that same vein of, this doesn't feel right. Like, don't go into a business relationship with them or something like that. And it's because they remind you of somebody else. Yeah. Sometimes that happens. But then you find out pretty much they're like a doppelganger of personality and looks. It happens all the time. So I always think we have these other kind of tribes within the human race.
You have a sixth sense about it. Yeah.
It's weird. Some people look and act and sound like somebody we either like or dislike. And they're, can be from two different parts of the world, but it's like a duplicate walking around and you have an instant dislike or like I said, but I'm going on the dislikes on this one. And you have that instant dislike. And if, that hair stands up on the back of your neck, I always listen to that gut thing because it's trust. But I always believe trust is trusting in yourself. And I think the distrust is when we go against our instinct, we distrusted ourselves, and that really will annoy us later in life. It does. And every time I go against it, like Nancy and I, we're in a situation with someone right now and they want to do some work with us. And Nancy's like flat out. And I'm like, my initial thing was, And then I'm like, well, this and that. And then she's like, I'm telling you, if you want to do it, you're doing it on your own. Don't put the company name on it. Don't this, why, so we both, and you have to respect each other on this. Right. And so it's like, okay, is this more important than our relationship, our business, what we stand for, all of that kind of thing. And if they don't check those things, if it makes us go out of a line of our own integrity, then we don't do it. But that instinct is there. And when I have to be honest about it, like truly, I know she's right. Dang it. Because my gut instinct says the same thing. I know. Oh, I'm being polite. It's really, because it's so interesting. We're doing that right now. It's like this gut instinct. Both of us went, no way. And for multiple reasons. And I think if you have multiple reasons, now that I'm just spilling my guts here to you, Lee, and to everybody listening, when you have multiple reasons, if you go against your multiple reasons of your gut instinct, and your, one of your closest people in your life is going through the same thing, you might want to listen to it. I made that decision.
You get what you get what you signed up for, and that's one of the other myths. Trust is not all or nothing. So, we talked a little bit about that. You identify the specific areas that need to be strengthened rather than assuming it's all present or all absent. There's things like you and I discussed. You can trust someone to keep a secret, but not to be on time. My dad was a brilliant guy, but he married at 19 or 20. And by the time he was 24, he had a wife and 5 kids to support. So he was always trying to think of ways that he could become a millionaire. So he would have these stories about how he was going to be a millionaire tomorrow, but in the meantime, sometimes couldn't pay the gas bill today.
Yeah.
So he would talk about these stories about he had been studying where there was the Lost Lemon gold mine in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and how he knew where it was, but it was cursed. And he was a great storyteller, and how he was going to retire a rich man by doing that. And I think what saved him is that he didn't own a horse and didn't have the money to actually go out and do these things. But the whole reason for this is that he was someone that you could trust to show up for you. When he died, my friends came up, and I had one friend who said that she was parked on the hill. It was a place in Alberta, in Calgary, and affectionately, and hopefully I don't insult or someone's not insulted by me saying this place was called Pecker Point. And it's because you used to go and make out there. And they ran out of gas, and this is a time before cell phones. And instead of calling her dad or his dad, they called my dad and got him up at 2:00 in the morning, because he was someone who didn't judge, and they knew that he would get out of bed, get the gas tank, come up, fill their car, as he was someone that could be counted on. So he was heart of gold, and he absolutely know that he gave them a rough time, but he never told on them, never mentioned that story to other people, but he would tease them about it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
He was someone, like when I say trust is all or nothing, he was someone that you could trust to help you when you needed help, to do what he said he would do, but you really couldn't trust him as far as some of his tall tales.
He's a storyteller.
He was a great guy. He was really
sweet, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing about, that if you do have those certain friends who will get up at 2 a.m. for you.
Yeah.
And I think those are soulmates, those are really good friends that, when those kinds of things occur. And that's a beautiful thing to have in your life, and that's trust. That's a version of one of the trust things. That's part of a relationship, right? But yeah, you can't, the same person, like you're saying, get up at 2 a.m. may tell you a tall tale and, say, by the way, can you pay my gas bill? Or two. So I'll tell you another story, So
when you look at that, that's a values. When I told you, I'm doing a lot of emotional intelligence courses again, like a refresher. And we did a values exercise where you had to pick your top values. And when you operate, you can see someone's values in action by watching what they do. And a lot of times we trust people who have similar values to us.
And that's a good thing, right? Or is it I would say it makes sense. And that's, well, look at what we do as we travel the country. Nancy and I pet sit for people.
Yeah.
And you had pet sitters too, through Trusted House Sitters, and you come together over shared values, which is the care of pets, the care of travel in the world of travel, and the care of someone's garden and plants. So you come together over something exactly like you're saying, that we care about this animal. They're voiceless. So it's the care of them is crucial because they do not have a cell phone. And some
you know,
dogs would want to play with them, cats too.
not going to get into politics, but I'm going to mention this, that you can look at some of the people who power is their top value. And if power is their top value, trust them to be who they say they're going to be and according to their values. Don't, you say, okay, so if this is their most important value, and I know people will, someone will come to mind when you say that, trust them to be true to that value.
People tell you who they are and who they aren't. Someone will say, oh, like if you told me, here, Lisa, here's 3 bottles of wine. Please do not touch this bottle of wine. This is something special. But the other 2 you can drink if you want. Well, you can trust me that I will not drink that 3rd bottle of wine. And you can also trust me because I love wine, that I will drink the other 2. Hands down.
Perfect.
But I will not drink that 3rd. You know what I mean? There's that people will tell you, I can't be trusted with, a whole bag of M&Ms. That's the truth. I will eat the bag of M&Ms. It's going to happen unless it's going to affect somebody else. But people will tell you, I can't be trusted with this, or I can't be trusted with that. It's kind of a saying that people have.
Yeah.
And I can't be trusted to wake up on time. You need to set an alarm. And that's a truth. A lot of times people tell you what they can and cannot be trusted with. And it's up to us to listen and take note and not just, that's where that expectation comes in. Sure, I can. Yeah. Oh, I do trust you for that. And the person's telling you, no, you can't. This is, because we're all flawed. We're all imperfect. And some people really don't get up in the morning without like an earthquake happening, and even that, I know people who sleep through earthquakes. So like if they tell you, I can't get up on time without something massive happening, listen to them. Like if you're if you're at a conference and one of your teammates or colleagues has a problem getting up, well, help them. If they tell you, I can't be the one who makes sure we all get to this meeting on time. Well, we all have phones and everything now, but this is just an example. Then when they tell you, I can't be the one, don't make them the one because you're doomed. So if you have someone who's a chirpy person in the group going, I love to wake up in the morning and I'm a happy wake up person, we all want to kill her.
That's what I was thinking too. So now another trust myth is once it's broken, it can never be rebuilt.
Yeah.
And it won't be the same, but trust can be rebuilt. So I think of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And he overcame substance abuse issues and legal troubles to rebuild his career and public trust. And I see him as an example of someone who was serious about rebuilding trust. Now, if he goes off the wagon again and starts abusing substance, then that will change. But from all appearances, he is someone that I think we can trust because he has had consistent personal and professional growth.
Well, he's been straight up about it too. I think, Rob Lowe talks about, there's a lot of people who talk pretty once they're at that point, and it's also a way of keeping themselves in line. I have friends who go through AA and they have the apology that they make when they first go into AA and really want to turn their lives around. They apologize to those that they've hurt. And trust, this really touches on a nerve in the world with addictions. It's an important thing to bring up. And it happens in the workplace. There's a lot of people dealing with addictions and they still have to function at work, right? So there's some who are functioning and at the same time, their addiction is in the power seat, not necessarily them. And that can create distrust with people because, well, it's true, because they will do what they need to do for the addiction before what the company needs, before what they need, before any of it, the addiction wins. And that's a chemical thing. And it's a disease. It's this goes into actual health need and healthcare. And then addictions create a big drama in the workforce, in the workplace, in relationships, personal and professional, familial. It creates a distrust. And that when they go to AA and they're doing the 12-step program, one of the first things they do is, you send letters of an apology or call someone and say, I'm sorry I did this. And I think that's a huge thing because and they're not necessarily trying to rebuild a relationship or start get back in good graces. It's an acknowledgement. And I think that has a long way of rebuilding trust within self and with the others. And I don't know, is that part of trust, is actually acknowledging it for both parties to move forward?
So rebuilding trust, you own the mistake. So showing that you care, having empathy and understand, so if someone has made a mistake, saying, I understand that this situation has been painful for many people, and I want to focus on my part of it and moving forward positively. So taking, responsibility, showing that they understand, like they care about what has happened with other people. And then, look at the 5 C's, caring. So that's one example of caring. Commitment. Trust isn't restored overnight. You consistently show up and make a commitment to personal growth. It's like if you say, I recognize that I have an addiction, but I'm just going to have one drink, but tomorrow I'll be sober. That
okay, yeah.
So you have to be consistent. Public figures have to align their public and their private behavior and show that there is a consistency there. So caring, commitment, and then the consistency and competence, showing that they absolutely have the skills to rebuild the trust. If they say that, if whether or not you're an actor or a doctor or an accountant, that once you've taken that oath that you're going to rebuild trust, then you make sure that you have the competence to be able to show people. And then communication, speak wisely and selectively. So every word matters after you've made a mistake. So that's a lot of times, this is where too many people focus on, they say rebuilding trust. They focus on the reputation and the branding and the image. But honestly, if you don't have the other ones behind there, it's just kind of hollow. So you look at companies that have lost trust, and what they hire is PR firms. And so they're crafting a message. But if all of the stuff that's going on behind, if they don't really care, if they're not consistent, if they're not competent, if they haven't done all of the right things behind, and if all they're focusing on is the PR, which is the communication, then they're not really trying to rebuild trust. They're just trying to rebuild their reputation. And that eventually come back and bite them in the butt.
Lipstick on a pig, except for I think pigs are cute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I think it creates even more distrust when you do that. Honesty is the best policy. I believe in that, and I like to speak wisely on it too. You can't be flippant. Like when people do an apology and they just go, oh, I know I screwed up. Sorry. Let's move on.
Yeah,
that's not good enough.
Words matter, but actions are what really define trust. So, it's like talk is cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear what you say, but I'll watch what you do. So line your action with your commitments and with what you say.
I will, Lee. I'll do it right now.
Hey, me too. Yeah. So don't ask me to wake up. Well, I can. If I promise I'll wake up early and wake you up, then I'll do it, but I won't be happy.
I'll wake you up, but I'll be annoying.
Give me a coffee.
Okay. I'll give you, I'm like that too. I don't, except for dogs can wake me up and I can talk to dogs. I can listen to the birds, talk to the birds. I could be with nature. But I really shouldn't have any human connection until I've had the first cup of coffee. And then I'm ready for the human world. Because the human world is brutal, man. I mean, I love the human world, but, the animal world, they're happy. They're like, I'm awake. Tails are wagging. Let's go play. And it's like, all right, how can you be grumpy with that?
Yeah. Bella will come, like, she's chosen Rick as her human. And she loves me, but she loves Rick. And so I'm good with that because in the morning, the first person she goes to is Rick. And forget it if he wants to sleep in, because she'll go up and basically just smack him in the face and say, okay, it's time to wake up and play with me. And he'll say, why don't you go wake up Mom? And it's like, no, you're my human. So
that's awesome.
We can trust her to wake him up.
See?
And I got to sleep in this morning because she does wake me up.
That is so funny. Lee, always good to have you on the show. I love this every time You're on every third Thursday, everyone. Lee is here, and I encourage you to check out her books. You can get It's Trust Me, Restore Belief and Confidence in an Uncertain World. Definitely written for today's times, but it wasn't written for today's times, but it's definitely right there. And then also Trusted, Secret Lessons from an Inspired Leader. Both of them you can go to thetrustarchitect.biz or leabrovedani.com. The link is in the episode notes. The books are on Amazon and on her website, and you can connect with Lee directly on her website if you're interested in coaching, her books, her workshops, speaking engagements, all of that good stuff that has to do with emotional intelligence. And I promise you, I trust Lee to be there on time, because she will be.
It's always fun talking to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. You take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show. This show is brought to you by Big Blend Magazines. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and check out our magazines at blendradioandtv.com.